Mega Man, you didn't have that many games on the Game Boy Advance, did you? That were classic side-scrollers? Yes, yeah, that's what I mean. There were technically 7 different Battle Network games if you did not include the different versions, and there were 5 platformers, one of which a Japanese-only game that got ported on the Game Boy Advance for some reason, and the Mega Man Zero series, a series that didn't involve playing as Mega Man at all. So, we're going to be looking at the first game of that. After the events of Mega Man X, a dictator government ends up taking over the world known as Neo Arcadia, which is led by the legendary Maverick Hunter, X. So yeah, that guy, yeah, he's evil now. Deal with it. While providing a paradise for humans, they also enslave all the Reploids. You know, the technology equivalent of humans, able to think and act up for themselves and all intents and purposes would not like to be enslaved. So as you imagine, a resistance is formed, led by Seal, a human and former Neo Arcadia employee. Being unable to fight a superpower for more than a few minutes, the Resistance decide to do one last-ditch effort to reawaken another legendary hero, one that fought alongside X during the Maverick Wars, named Zero, also the player character you probably figured. Oh, and not that guy, this guy. They changed art directors for this series of games, and so that's why you don't see anyone with the big Mega Man hands or feet. Upon reawakening, Zero saves Seal, fights through some Neo Arcadia goons, saves Seal again, get attacked by a giant golem, is given a Z-Saber by a non-important ball of light, saves Seal again, and pretty much makes it back to the Resistance base. Also, Zero got that amnesia. After that, you're given your tutorial mission, and then after that, the game more or less opens up. Now there's a lot to talk about gameplay-wise, so I'm just going to cover each aspect in the order that the average Joe would probably encounter them. If you played the Mega Man X games, you'll feel right at home. Zero controls pretty much identical, being able to walk, jump, dash, slash with his Z-Saber, or use his Z-Buster, which is now a handgun for some reason, but he can't double jump anymore. Later on, Zero gets 2 extra weapons, a shield he can use to reflect enemy projectiles, and throw Captain American style, and a spear that's multi-directional but requires Zero to be stationary when he's on the ground. Zero can equip 2 of these weapons at any time. In regards to direct weaponry, that's all you get. In this game, when you defeat bosses, Zero doesn't gain a power. Instead, the boss will drop an elemental chip. This chip will change Zero's elemental affinity. The elements in question work in an elemental triangle, with fire losing to electricity, electricity losing to ice, and ice losing to fire. Now how you use the elements is the actual issue here. You see, weapons in this game, the 4 I mentioned, have levels, and Zero has to level them up via the usage. Now you're probably wondering, wait, if there are levels, what is it holding back? What's going on here? Basically, the best way I can explain this is at level 1, Zero will only swing his Z-Saber once. When Zero levels up his Z-Saber for the first time, he will gain another slash for the combo. Eventually, he will get the charge ability for it. That charge ability, which is about level 4, is the only way to use your elemental chips, and this applies to all your other weapons, including ones you get later on in the game, where, guess what? You'll have to start leveling those up all over again. Which chances are you won't, because you already have your Z-Saber and your Z-Buster leveled up, so why even level up something else? Especially since the spear is no better than the Z-Saber. Honestly, they're just holding back the player's abilities just to make it arbitrarily difficult and extend gameplay time. Because when you have a charge attack, bosses go down way easier. And it doesn't even add anything to the gameplay. You wanna know what it adds to gameplay? It adds this. Speaking of grindy aspects, let's talk about the Cyber Elves, which are the technology equivalent of spirits/fairies, though in Zero's case, more fairy. You find these hidden throughout levels, and after feeding them E-crystals, a currency that enemies drop, they will eventually become an adult. When they become an adult, Zero can use them. When he uses them, they die, but Zero will gain abilities from it. These abilities vary from climbing ladders faster, sliding down walls slower, to actual health upgrades, and E-tanks, which essentially heal Zero. Obviously, when a Cyber Elf is dead, it can't be used again. But the issue here is while this was used in the classic series for various other abilities by collecting bolts that enemies would drop, the difference here is that essential power-ups that you would really like to have are pretty much tied to Cyber Elves, and you have to have E-crystals, which enemies in this game are remarkably stingy about dropping. So you can find yourself grinding in areas for long periods of time just trying to get enough for one upgrade. This, in tandem with the elemental chips, only even applies if you get that far. You see, the game has this mission system where basically you can choose which stages you go to, like in the older Mega Man games, but the difference is they have objectives in them and they're multi-phased. The issue is, when you run out of lives in these missions, you'll basically be teleported back to the hunter base, and you'll be unable to try the mission again. And this applies if you use the escape option too, so that's a moot point. But an even more bizarre thing is the life system. Basically, if you run out of lives in most other games, your life counter would reset to 2 or 3, something like that. But in this game, it doesn't. It just stays 0. So when you go on to another mission and you die just once, you failed the mission. Failing the mission is punishment enough. You're missing out on borderline essential power-ups. Now you're just making the game unapproachable. So yes, this is one of those games where if you fail too much, you will have to start a new file. And because of the fact that you have to know how these missions are before you even go into them, this just escalates the problem even more. Let's talk about the level design while we're here. Basically, any given mission can be broken up into phases. Usually, and I say usually, they can be broken up by 0 going to the location, then doing whatever it needs to do the objective, and then going through a boss fight, usually ending the mission. Sometimes it doesn't. There's also a rating system, but it's mainly just there for unlocking new difficulties and modes. Let's talk about a few examples. Example 1. A resistance ship gets downed in a desert, and basically you have to go there and find a pilot. So basically, you go to the desert and get attacked by virtually everything that pops out of everywhere, and then eventually you find the boss. And then you fight the boss and defeat it, hopefully with your charge attack. After that, you find a pilot, and that's it, right? Fade to black? No, my friend. Now you have to escort him through the desert. That's right. There's an escort mission in a Mega Man game. Though, to the game's credit, it's not like the guy gets stuck on anything. He'll just stop periodically and you have to help him up. Other than that, just make sure he doesn't take too many hits and get him to the end. Example 2. Seal basically says she thinks there might be some data back in the place that she found you that might be useful. So you go there. And after going through the level, which isn't too bad actually, you find a boss there and you fight it. And after you beat him, yeah, you're guaranteed to lose at least 1 life in this place if you don't know that's gonna happen. Final example. Seal says she thinks there's a hidden base in the desert because people have been going missing there. Though you'd think it'd be more due to the wildlife, but whatever. Anyway, you go to the desert and you find a hidden entrance. After going through a cave area that I swear was designed just to kill you, not test your skills, just kill you, you make it into the enemy base. After that, for lack of better words, a stealth section happens. What the slash beast? First an escort mission, now a stealth section? At this point, there must have been a vehicle segment and a turret section that were just ripped out of the game at the last minute. Then again, calling it a stealth section would be really gracious. Basically, if these enemies see you or you get too close to their front side or whatever, they'll summon 2 dudes who will show up and try to punch you, and that'll be it. There's no other repercussions, there's no endless flow of guards coming to kill you, there's no you need to hide to let the alarm go down, you could just walk away and none of that would even matter. So, the best way to do this part of the mission is to walk around looking for prisoners to save, all the while shooting your Z-Buster as you go, basically killing anyone before you even get close to them. So yes, the best way to do this quote-unquote stealth section is to do the least stealthy thing you could possibly do. Then, after all of that, you're ready to hop on the shuttle and go. The prisoners tell you the hangar is being protected by a boss. Even they know how gamey this is. Oh, and did I mention that they reuse levels sometimes? Because sometimes they do that. And no, the power-ups that were in the previous time through won't be there the second time they tell you to go to that place. So, no cheating the system. For all the buster shots I take at this game, there are 2 things that I'll give it. One, it has normal platformer tightness. That means no sluggish controls, 0 controls the way you want them to, and there's a difference between someone who's mastered controls and someone who hasn't. Granted, some of my platforming controls are that easy to mess up. 2, I found there was satisfaction when completing these levels. Granted, to get to that point, you would have to know when everything is going to happen. so it might depend on the gamer at that point. Presentation-wise, it's kinda hard to grade considering it came out over 10 years ago on a handheld and using sprites for assets. That being said, I didn't find the redesigns offensive at all, really. I understand why they did what they did, make Zero look younger, so then he could appeal to a younger audience, which the Game Boy Advance was aimed at a younger audience, particularly boys, though of course that got changed because now Nintendo doesn't use boys in the name of their handhelds anymore, and the point of the matter is, I didn't find anything particularly wrong with it. Still has that problem with Reploids looking like humans, unless they're really obviously not human. Would I recommend this game? Not really. Only if you really want to finish the Mega Man Zero series, or you want a really hard time. I'm not saying it doesn't have what make Mega Man games good in it, I am saying it has some systems with it that weren't executed particularly well and seem to chain react in negative ways. Like not having your abilities at the start of the game, making you unable to use the elemental chips when and if you get them, with missions that can be permanently failed, making you miss out on essential power-ups, and don't even get me started on the 1-up system that just messes with everything. So yeah, only if you want a really hard time. But next time in Mega Man Z, we'll see what they did in the sequel.